respectful of everybody's time and really appreciative that those who are here were able to make it out tonight. I just wanted to start by saying thanks to Scott for offering to host us here at the water treatment plant. I know that's something that we had talked about doing for some time, and I think that obviously there's a lot of history bound up with this plant, and it's connected in the minds of a lot of residents to a lot of bad experiences. And one of the things that happened kind of at the height of the water crisis is that this building, which was once pretty open to the public, was kind of closed off, and I think that even people who had had the opportunity to see it felt like at that point they were pretty disconnected from what was going on here. And I guess my hope, just speaking for myself, is that by meeting here, this can maybe be a step in the process of opening it back up a little bit and just kind of refamiliarizing people, or familiarizing them for the first time with what this place is and what goes on here and who works here. This is, after all, part of our public sphere in Flint. This is a public building, owned by the people of Flint, and it's a really important building in so many ways to this city's past and present and future. So one of the concerns I know that some folks had about meeting here is that because a lot of folks haven't been here before, and because it has been pretty closed off for so long, it's not necessarily the most accessible or friendly place, I think, in terms of perceptions. And so again, my hope is that maybe we can start to change that. And of course, we can decide as a group where we want to have our next meeting. It doesn't have to be here, but there are maybe multiple reasons to at least consider using this space from time to time. One other consideration that I've mentioned before is that it's become very hard to book space in the library. I keep thinking that I'm looking far enough in advance of our meetings for a room, and I'm finding lately that things are booked like months out. And so, I do think that the library is also a great and very logical place, for us to meet, and we can continue trying to meet there for sure. But it's at least nice to know that this is an option. And, if we need to take further steps to make sure that the public at large feels comfortable coming here and knows where to go and, how to get here and where to go and all of that, we can certainly do that. I think that we're kind of on the front end here. So again, just want to say thanks, Scott, for offering to host us, and hopefully again it's the beginning of some changed perceptions of what this place is all about. Okay, so we would do roll call, except that again, I think we already know we don't have quorum. We've got 4 out of 9 people here.
Can we just do a round of introductions with everybody?
We can certainly do that.
Of folks.
Please, yeah, let's do that, and we don't have to start. I mean, I guess I'll go first, but we can do this in any order. So, my name is Ben Pauley, and I am a resident of the 7th Ward. Lived here in Flint since 2015, and I came here to take a job at Kettering as an assistant professor of social science. So that's where I teach. But I've been serving as kind of the acting chair of the Water System Advisory Council now for a while. But my role here is really just to facilitate. We're trying to make this as sort of democratic a body as we can. And so, again, I don't want anybody to think that I have any kind of special authority in any of this. So I'll leave it at that, and I don't know, should we go clockwise? Or that would be counterclockwise. Not only do I not have any special authority, I don't have any special competence, as you can tell.
Really selling, man.
So, with that,
okay.
Nancy.
I'm Nancy Love. I am a member of the WSAC, and I'm not a Flint resident. I am a professor at the University of Michigan in water quality engineering, and I offer kind of technical insight and support to this council.
My name is Sean McElmurray. I'm a professor at Wayne State University, and otherwise everything that Nancy said is the same. So,
Scott Dungy, City of Flint Water Plant Supervisor.
Brandon McVeigh, City of Flint Water Plant Operations Supervisor. I've been at the city for about 6.5 years.
Arthur Woodson, Flint resident.
I'm sorry, what's your name?
Arthur Woodson.
Thank you.
Dominic Smoot, operations foreman on shift right now. Been here almost 8 years.
Hi everybody, I'm Elizabeth Jordan, I'm a Flint resident.
I'll take down my mask so everybody can see me, at least for the introductions. Not contagious, but I'm congested. I don't think I'm contagious, so hence the mask. I'm Naira Sharif, I'm on the council. I'm a 6th Ward resident and was really excited about this council because we have fought for the lead copper rule revisions, and part of those revisions at the state level was the creation of these advisory councils.
I'm sorry, just to butt in real quick, we've got one of our council members at the gate and it's not opening. Somebody can help with that. So this gate situation is one of those
The
things I
gate,
think we need
okay.
to figure out for
That's
next
a-
time.
You remember I
That's
asked
an
you?
Yeah,
advisor.
you asked me, yep. So, yeah, if we can, if somebody could just kind of be stationed to open it as
Who else is
necessary.
coming?
So I know of at least one other person that's coming. So yeah, I hate to take anybody away from the meeting, but yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you.
That's why I asked you, on that Zoom, as far as security and all that.
Yeah. Yeah, so, yeah, I was thinking the gate could just be open, but, and I don't know if that's possible, Scott. Again, I know that's not the usual protocol, but we just wanna make sure
I
that.
thought under Homeland Security, it has to be secure.
Yeah, I don't know if there's a rule around, we wanna be respectful of the rules and the considerations here, but,
After hours, we definitely keep it closed.
yeah.
You know, it's kind of up to us. We did it just because we got so much riffraff was coming in here. People were just, walking in areas that are abandoned, and we just, it was unsafe. So we had to lock it down.
I remember one time walking along this, or I think I was biking along the bike path, and I saw somebody walk out of the old water treatment plant. I think they'd been doing some urban exploring or something like that in there. And so I know what you mean, but
Well, I'll just say
That's-
it's not uncommon, a
Yeah.
lot of utilities are locked down,
Yeah.
and not just here.
I know during, 9/11, they amended the Safe Water Drinking Act, bioterrorism and all that.
That's right.
Yeah,
And,
critical
they
infrastructure,
made
they can do that.
infrastructure, security and all that.
we just need to be sure that maintaining the security protocols is compatible also just with, making sure this is an open place that people feel comfortable coming to. So, sorry, I'm gonna take this call real quick to make sure Gina knows where to go, but don't let that stop the
Introductions.
You left off with me.
Yes.
Hi, everybody. Diane Russell, EPA Community Involvement. Did you want me to expand since we're waiting? I can give you my soliloquy of life story.
Your whole life story.
Yes, I live in the county. I've been here ever since EPA signed the emergency order in February 2016. And I'm now in the office of one person, that's me. Everyone else has left, me behind. And we are working, we have expanded our staff, even though they're not in the office. There's a lot of people working on Flint issues. I'd say over the last couple of years, we've really expanded. It was really an office of one for a minute, but now we've got environmental justice staff bringing in resources. We got our air division kind of putting a bunch of enforcement stuff in, and see, you knock on doors long enough, somebody will open. So, long enough. It took a while, didn't it? But we got some doors, so that's great. So here I'm just here to talk, because we talked about resources to help assist this group too, so there's a handout that was sent around. Help move this along. All right, how'd I do?
That's great, excellent. The best one. I'm Faith Grusbeck. I'm the manager of the Office of Public Health been with the city a year and a half, just a little more than that. And part of our role is to make sure these meetings occur and have all of the things to make them happen.
Well, you were the best one, but now Faith was because she's my boss.
That's fair.
My name is Laura Irwin Hall, and I also work for the Office of Public Health. I am a public health navigator and communication specialist. I live in the 5th Ward, and I have been a resident of Flint since April of 2023, and I have been a member of the Office of Public Health team since July of 2023, so I'm kind of new.
So Gina and Carol, we're just going around the table doing introductions, and I think we've got to everybody else now. If you would like to introduce yourself, and we do have quorum now. I'm happy to say with Gina's arrival, so that's good news. Please.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Gina Smith. Part of the Water Advisory Committee. Anyone else need to ask?
Anything you like, but that's fine.
Born and raised in Flint, Michigan, so I'm happy to be here. I'm actually my background's in public health, so I've worked in various places.
Thanks for being here. Carol, do you want to?
Yeah, Carol Kincaid, born here in Flint. Spent all but 13 of my 74 years here. My education is very unconventional, but I used to read for a biochemist for 13 years. So I've been exposed to a lot, although it hasn't equated to any letters following my name. And let me tell you, I have been invested in what's going on here in Flint, Michigan. Many of you know my partner died from pneumonia in August of 2014 before anybody would admit that anything was going on. So I'm still watching. Did I say I submitted to attempt to be a part of the committee?
Yes, and so
Okay.
that's on our agenda, and actually that's where I was going next, is I just wanted to give a quick overview of the agenda, and now we can officially approve it, now that we have quorum, so that's a good thing. You'll see that we're gonna have our public comment period as usual. I think we have at least one public commenter tonight. And then our new business will just be our usual discussion with Scott and Brandon about anything that's going on that we need to know about, and there'll be a chance to ask some questions. And then we are going to have an update on the applications for the council, including your application, Carol. And then an update from Diane, and there's some paperwork related to that we can take a closer look at. And then we can start talking a little bit about the CCR and where that stands. So that's the general idea here for today. Anybody have any suggested amendments to the agenda? All right, I will consider it to be approved by consensus then. So moving on, now those who have been to our meetings before know that we like to keep it a bit informal, so it's not like folks who are giving public comment need feel like that's the only time they can speak or participate. Usually we try to keep it a little loose, but since this is our official public comment period, Elizabeth, if you would like to say some words, then you are more than welcome to.
Thank you very much, Ben. And appreciate the chance to be here tonight. I think this is the first one of these meetings that I've attended. And I know that your focus has primarily been on the drinking water side of things, and my comments tonight are more on the stormwater side of the water system. I moved into my current neighborhood a little over 2 years ago, and I have to say that for the last 9 months, stormwater has been my nemesis. Since April, my house has flooded in the basement 6 times. Every single time we have a significant rainstorm or rain combined with snow melt. And I'm not the only one. Probably the worst affected that I know of in my neighborhood, but there's at least a dozen of us that are having similar problems. And it's been a real problem. So I can say for me, I don't know how much of this is a combination of the fact that our sewers have not been adequately maintained, Thankfully, I've seen now sewer cleaners within the last week start to come out, but I don't know if it's in response to my repeated efforts to get some attention or if that was previously scheduled. But, you know, some combination of the sewers not being maintained, of increased rainfall due to climate change and whatnot. And I'll say just for me, like I've lived in this house, as I said, for over 2 years now. The first year and some change had 0 problems. As soon as the Miller Road construction project was done, I have had problems every single time that we've had a significant rainfall. So I don't know if there's some problem with how that construction project affected the flow of water through the neighborhood, but I'm coming here tonight to put that on your radar, to seek whatever support this group might be able to offer in making sure that the city is able to look at that. I have sent numerous, emails and had communications with the sewer department, the mayor's office, trying to get this addressed. And I'm kind of the point person for my neighborhood, because I think in general it's easier to have one person who's doing a lot of the legwork rather than having 12 or 15 individuals try to do the same. So I'm happy to be a conduit for information with that. I've provided the city with a Google map where I mapped out the location of all the known problems in my neighborhood, and also suggested to them that they have a system that when people call into the sewer line saying, hey, I'm having problems, they're very friendly. They send people out to take a look and usually say there's no blockage on their side, and then it happens again. But what I've encouraged them to do is actually to map out, because my neighborhood, I would guess, is probably not the only one that's having this problem. It's just the only one that I'm aware of. But it would be worth the city mapping out where are these complaints coming from, so they can identify whatever those pinch points are in the system and give some prioritization to that. The other thing that I'm advocating for is that the city is supposed to do an annual capital improvement plan. We're pretty much at that time of the year where the city should be doing that. It's supposed to, it's required by state law, and it's supposed to help guide the budgeting process. But as part of that capital improvement plan, there needs to be adequate attention to the storm sewer and sanitary sewer systems. As you may know, I think Flint has a combined system, so although when it rains, most of what comes up my basement is rainwater, it's not all rainwater, and it's a real stinky mess to clean up.
There are some areas that are combined, but the majority of the city is not.
Okay, so my neighborhood, the sewer lines would have been in the 30s.
Can you say what percentage of the flow is combined?
I will have to check. I will have to check on that, but I'm not, and I don't work in the sewer, but I have heard over the years that they have tried to eliminate all of that cross connections. But I will research this.
They getting ready to redo the whole sewer system. Eagle came down, last month, and they are working right now on doing the whole sewer system. They got the engineers working on it right now, and I mean, it's going all the way across the city. It was in M Live, Cherie Myers. She came down and spoke at city council about it. It's supposed to be about 70-something million, $80-something million, where there's 2 lines that run across the city, and they trying to figure out, do they shut down one and operate the other one? So they are getting ready to work on it, because they said it's a serious issue that's like a volcano about to explode because the pipes are so old.
Yep, well, I've got pictures that a neighbor sent to me of this most recent snow melt that we had a couple weeks ago. And it looks like a fountain spurting up from the manhole cover. That's how much storm water there was. It was burbling out onto the street.
That's another problem.
So I'm glad to hear there may be some attention to that, but that's the manhole cover, and you can see it's all the holes that just spurting right out.
That's a collection system.
It's overwhelmed.
Yep.
Just, go ahead.
Just real quick, do you feel comfortable sharing? First, I'm gonna say I'm sorry. That really stinks.
It really does.
Yeah, I didn't mean to say, but it is the truth. But and the second thing we'll offer is we haven't had that many extreme storms in the last couple months, so there's something going wrong.
Yeah.
But do you feel comfortable sharing a little bit more detail about where you live,
Location.
maybe
Yeah, I've got the
cross
map.
street of a major
So-
intersection if you don't want to share your address, kind of thing?
So I live in the Woodcroft neighborhood, and there's, like I said, about a dozen homes that I'm aware of in that neighborhood that have similar problems. Maybe not everyone as much as mine, but have flooded at least once or more since April. And so that's, you know, our.
So on the
you know,
south side of.
between Miller and
Of Miller Road, yeah, it
Cummings.
kind of empties out into the Swartz Creek golf course area.
Between Miller and.
Do you,
It's on the
is,
south
Fur-
side.
further
is
west.
there if you had to identify a point location where you think there is the most flooding from, is that regularly an intersection that you can name, or?
Yeah, so, Parkside and Hampton, that's kind of like the bottom of the hill. And so the water kind of collects down Westwood toward Hampton, and then it goes towards Parkside, where it empties out by the golf course.
Oh, right in there, okay.
So, Scott, Brennan, I know you guys aren't the stormwater or the wastewater guys, we get that, you know, but, you know, part of, I guess, what we were thinking maybe we could do as a council is when we get public comment like this, we can at least help people to connect with the right folks, and we can also be part of the advocacy around whatever that issue is to make sure that there's follow-up, to make sure that people are getting the information they need and so forth. Do you have any thoughts about, you know, how we could best do that?
Well, you've already been, you said you've been to the mayors, and have you talked to Patrice Mitchell, Jiggy? He's the sewer department.
JD Mitchell, okay.
It's Jiggy, I think, Jiggy, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
Scott.
Patrice is his first name, but they call him Jiggy.
Okay.
I can give her, Cherie Myers, Eagle, who works real close with, Flint and on that project for the sewer. I can give you her phone number.
So the sewer you're talking about is a force main that goes from Third Avenue to the wastewater plant. So Third Avenue collects most of the heart of downtown city of Flint. So all of them storm drain, all of them sanitaries, which do, like you said, you know, due to the, you know, areas that are old and whatnot, probably still have interconnections. But anyway, that all goes to Third Avenue, and then Third Avenue is a force main that goes straight to the wastewater plant. That's a line all by itself. Never, you know, them don't catch any stormwater, I mean, they just catch a combined everything, and then it pumps it to the wastewater plant. You have a, you know, unique problem. Obviously, there's something plugged in your storm system somewhere.
Or they put Miller Road dumping into the line
Yeah,
or something.
something like that.
And that's my concern, 'cause I didn't have any problems the first 15 months, and then I've had it 6 times in the last 9 months.
And you're not the only one.
And I'm not the
And
only
others
one.
have lived there longer.
Yeah, and I think some people have had some problems over the years, but it's been worse.
It seemed like it got worse after that project.
So when they replaced the water mains along Miller, was there other work that was done at the time on the stormwater and wastewater?
So of course, anytime they
infrastructure?
replace a water main, they'll try to do all the services.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was a complete project where they did storms and sanitaries, all that, I'd have to ask them.
Okay.
That was a big project.
It wasn't a storm, it was just, water mains, because they used 2.8 million of ARPA funds to put new water mains in. And, then the other part of it was MDOT. So they
That's
just
just rolling.
combined, right,
Yes.
they combined, they said, since we tearing up the road, we might as well put new water mains in, but they never did do anything with the sewer.
That 2.8 sounds like just a water main.
Right.
So, sorry, go ahead.
I'm just reading the MLive article now, and I was wondering, it said that the city had to sign this.
Right.
Do you know if
Yeah,
that
they thought-
happened?
Well, at first they thought they had to bring it to, city council, and they didn't, because it was already approved.
Okay.
And they thought they had to bring it to city council, but the mayor was able to, sign.
So, okay, they signed the schedule with
Right, they
Eagle.
signed.
Thank you.
So I did just wanna say that back when that article that you're referencing came out, I tried to, I invited, Jiggy to come speak to us, and it didn't work out for that meeting. So we haven't yet had a chance as a council to connect with him, but, you know, it would be great to do that, cause again, you know, we know that, we've obviously had, you know, issues with our drinking water here, but that's just one part of our water system, and I think that, you know, we as a council are sort of taking it upon ourselves to define the scope of our work, and I think that if we're hearing from residents that they're having stormwater and wastewater issues, and if we can do something about that, then let's do it, and so.
Yeah, and I think it's also would be beneficial having Jiggy here, because, you know, like, like you have the capital improvement plans,
Yeah.
and then, the city makes a determination of which ones could also be eligible for the safe revolving funds. And, there's the source water, the clean water, and then the drinking water. And, like we, as a Flint Rising, like we do participate in that process with the public comment. So also like finding out if they do have any active applications, with that department, with the clean water, SRF. Because I think like the deadline for them to like do interest was back in November, but they have until June 1st to, to finish like to lay out like their project scope. And that usually happens like every year, and probably around August is when that is open up for public comment. So it will be beneficial for us to make sure that, the advocacy happens all the way through until, the projects are awarded.
So what's the best way to put Elizabeth in touch with Jiggy? We have a contact, an email address, at least, Scott, that you can pass along. And,
I'll give you my card before you leave.
Does anybody have a problem with me being CC'd on these communications, just so that we can give it a little bit of a stamp of, our
Absolutely.
credibility, and maybe, hopefully add, just back you up, Elizabeth, so that, folks aren't just responding to you, they're responding to us, and we can revisit the issue as appropriate.
So real quick, speaking about the sewer again, right? Burton, Michigan is still on Flint, Michigan sewer, but they're not on our water because they allowed them to change the pipes and switch over to KWA back in like 2016, 17, somewhere around there. But they are still using the sewer system, but they do not pay for the sewer. I asked Mike Brown, why are you not charging Burton, Michigan and getting that revenue for them using the sewer? So saying that, they haven't paid since, I don't know when, but wondering if that also would have, be changed, or would they still be on Flint sewer system also, and would that have something to do with our sewer system out there? Because I don't think we even check on it or anything, but I know they still is on the sewer, just like GM. GM switched off and went to KWA. After KWA came online, and Flint had to pay them for sewer, so we were overcharging them for sewer. So if you could add that in there to find out, are we getting revenue from Burton yet for sewer charges?
Might be, yeah, if we can get Jiggy to a meeting, I think we'd have, it sounds like we'd have a range of questions that we could ask. And so then, Art, it would be great also to get that contact, your Eagle contact,
Yeah,
and both to
definitely.
Elizabeth and, if you wanna send it to me too, just so,
Yeah, I
we
see.
can- that would be great, thank you. Yeah, Carol.
Yeah, well, I haven't heard anybody speak to the health issue of having raw sewage
That's a great
in a
point.
home. And I'm gonna guess that when the cleanup happens, it's not, it may also be exposed to other places that expose more people, is my guess. And this is only to report it.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people that manage their own stuff. And last but not least, I'm calculating the residency here in Flint, and I'm absolutely horrified that we're at, somewhere near half of our former peak. And we're having sewage discharge issues. Okay, so I'm done.
No, it's a good point. There's not as much flow as there is.
I got a lot. Well, I won't take a long time.
This is our public comment time,
Let's
so
start
the
with-
floor is yours, Art.
Since we was talking about sewers, Ajax is in Genesee Township, but they have two addresses. One is in Flint also, and they are using Outfall 1. And I'm trying to figure out, and I've been asking for the longest, how did they receive an NPDES for their storm runoff?
You wanna explain what that is so people understand? or-
Diane?
That's what you call it.
So a NIPD's permit, they call it, what is it, what does the acronym stand for? National Pollution, yeah.
Discharge Elimination System.
Yes,
Thank you.
yes. So
I wanna
it's.
say it wrong.
So those NIPD's permits are, required, it's basically, a permit to discharge a certain amount of, a quantity that's regulated by the state. And they measure, what they're putting, so there's parameters on what they're putting out into the system. And then if anything goes above any regulatory requirements, they're required to correct that, so.
Now, the reason why I asked that, right? Lockhart, for example, they were violated back in 2009, outfall 1. And from 2009 all the way up to 2022, June of 2022, was it 22 or 23? 22. They had that big sewer event. In the violation letter, they were supposed to fix, reline, or either put in new storm sewers. That was part of the violation, something they had to do. But by them filing bankruptcy, they don't have to do it now. It falls on Flint. So we didn't allow them to do that. Either the state or the county allowed them to do that. So why would Flint have to pay for something that we didn't allow them to do? So that's something that we should look at as far as Ajax starting up, brand new, find out who gave them this NPDES to use outfall 1, and whoever gave it to them, Flint makes them sign a waiver or whatever saying that they will be responsible for this outfall if something was to happen, because we're gonna have to pay for it now because Lockhart is gone.
Diane, is that something you can follow up on?
So the NIPD's program is a state-run program.
Okay.
And, I mean, we can ask folks that are contacts at the state to see who is.
This is a case where, yeah, I don't know who to go to exactly.
Right, so, and this is the, who gave Ajax the NIPD's permit?
Right. I've been asking, I asked Sherry, Ms. Myers, I asked.
What did she say?
They can't find who gave it to them. I've been asking for the.
Only Eagle could issue that.
Well,
Yeah.
some of the
The
state-
Eagle saying that they didn't issue it.
Oh, that's the only place you can get it.
Yeah, it's
they
state,
said that
it's a
they
state-run
didn't
program.
So I've
Let's
been
find
asking-
out.
So.
They said it's a temporary, this is what the email said. The email said it was a temporary NPDES. And I'm sitting back like, all right, if it's temporary, who issued them a temporary NPDES?
How long ago has it been in place? Temporary?
Since they've been building.
Yeah, so
over there.
they did the permit to install back in 2021. I
Yeah.
think that's when the public comment went out in July 2021. There was a determination, I wanna say 2022, of like that permit was approved, cause it was a bunch of stuff, cause it was a new permit. But I think like one of the broader issues, which this is a state issue, is like when there is, like as a state, we don't have kind of like a polluter pay, so it's the state's responsible for the cleanup instead of the company that, that creates the conditions where there is, discharge.
I mean, we gotta learn by Buick City. We should've learned from Buick City, but we
Yeah.
didn't. Then Lockhart turned around, so now they
Yeah,
in court now.
Yeah, it's an issue with a lot of places, a
where
lot of
we-
companies around the state, especially like companies that have shut down. Like there was basically something, I wanna say a couple weeks ago down in Warren, where it was this closed company, like there was discharge And it's like, like we need like better laws that can protect us, when stuff like this happens. Because like, you have a company just filed bankruptcy, it's like now we gotta pay, and it goes back to the state, which is basically all of us.
So do I understand, I wanna be sure I understand it through, so, did Ajax locate in the same location as Lockhart was, is that?
No, it's in Genesee Township,
Okay.
which is just a historic, Carpenter Industrial Park, which has like all of these other toxic industries.
Okay.
And it's off of Carpenter Road. Technically, the street name is Energy Drive.
And this where Ajax is? Or?
That's where Ajax is. There's
Okay.
Consumer Energy sister companies,
Is
the
it
Wood Waste
coating-
Incinerator,
coating?
Universal Coating, RJ
Matter of
Torching.
fact,
It's
they
just a lot of.
They just put in for a new air quality something.
Yeah.
I've been reading about that.
Yeah, they just had a public comment for that.
Yeah. The other thing I'll just say is, and for a completely different purpose, but there's an online database of all NPDES permits in the state. It's I have it here,
Yeah.
it's the Michigan Enviro page.
Right.
Yeah.
And
I went on that too.
It's
have you gone on there to? Okay.
not that easy to navigate, but yeah,
No,
it
it's
is.
not.
It is there. Where you can
You
find
can
active
manually
permits
yourself.
and all of that,
So-
yeah.
So, all right, so moving from that one, what's the day? Tuesday? Last week at City Council, they brought a resolution for the DPW ordinance. I get tired of people trying to move things and not say things or omit things in conversation. That's basically a lie to me.
It is.
When you say that you're just changing it to, if a person worked 30 years in this position, then they have enough experience, right? I understand that. Military, we go training and we work the job while we're in the military, and we should get credit for that. I understand that. But when you say that's it, that's all we're changing, and that's all I'm looking at, and then I start seeing other things that you didn't change, it leaves a bad taste in my mouth.
Can you explain what's been changed? So what you're talking about is the criteria that are in the charter for that position.
Right. So what's been changed, I don't have the paperwork with me, but it was 14 different things in the job description.
Yeah.
They broke it down to 9. And the main 5 that they took out were the most important parts. Knowing the legal requirements, they took that out. The job description, you don't have to know that in the job description. Knowing the state of the art, how it works, all that, they took that out. They gutted it.
So was there any discussion, so I know like when they originally put out a call for applications for that position, I think they got like 3, which was really like 2.5, because one person wasn't even remotely qualified from what I understand. Was there any discussion of that being the rationale that they need to?
But, all right, so.
And I'm not saying it's a good rationale, I'm just wondering if that's how it was
Here's my
presented.
problem, right? The problem that I have with that, right, is if you see no one is putting in for the job, this is Flint. Flint has so many different things going on. The water, the council, Flint is just messed up. I'm gonna just say what it is. If you can pay a person, a marijuana liaison, $36 an hour, you can find money to get a good DPW person. Why would you wanna dumb down on a position where you already know we're vulnerable, we know our system is really messed up? I'm not saying that it's nobody in the water department, Mr. Dungy, no disrespect to anyone. I'm not saying that, but don't take out job descriptions and qualifications to make it fit someone. Make sure that it stays the same.
It's a perfectly fair point that, you know, why in this city of all cities would we want to be lowering standards, right, rather than, you know, raising them or at least, you know, holding them steady. I mean, so I don't know if that, you know, what the rationale was exactly for those changes, but I guess, Scott, I wonder if you want to chime in on this.
Nobody's signing up for it.
Okay,
Nobody's
that's the
allowed.
main problem is we just, the
They're
people
not
feel like we
trying
need
to
a bigger
cause money.
pool of applicants.
It's the money. I mean, Rob
I'm staying
Benson-
neutral on that.
I'm saying, Rob Benson was out because they wouldn't give him that extra $36,000.
It's not all money, some of it's the whole package.
Yeah,
You
I
know,
mean,
your benefits, you know,
right.
your retirement, you know, certain things. The city's been in distress for so many years. You know, in the last few years, and when the state came in, they whacked everything.
And I know that this
Things
is,
are lean.
I would say this is kind of issue with the water sector in general of like folks, you know, because I know like, you know, just thinking about like what is this next generation of like, you know, water system operators, like there needs to be like some workforce development and like this can be a career that you can raise your family on. But I do agree, like we shouldn't be like lowering standards. There should be like recruitment strategies to say this is a way, you know, like this could be opportunity for us to like partner with like Mott or, you know, some other place so we can have so people can get those certifications so they can come in to the workforce. And I think like if there could be like some type of pathway, like you do this, like kind of like what they do with, you know, skilled trades of just like you do this, you got a job, you know, like this could be you right here.
I wonder what happened there was a program that partnered with, I thought, Southwestern and Delta College.
Don't do that.
What?
Don't do that.
What?
So.
I hadn't heard anything about it.
None of the programs that was implemented, core program, remember the core program?
Well, that was before,
Where
but.
they were supposed to have a job and trained and have a job right after they got done doing the core program. All of them unemployed right now. Delta, we haven't seen anybody.
I think Delta was not for a director position, kind of education, that's probably
Right.
more for.
It was just a
entry-level
feeder for,
laboratory.
like,
The high school to Delta.
Right. It never worked.
So.
Did it go away? Is it even?
So
I see two
Out of
issues
sight, out of
when it's my
mind.
turn.
We haven't heard from Gina yet, I just.
No, I was
wanted
just
to-
gonna add, again, I haven't seen this job description, but, you know, having worked with like recruitment, and there's different ways that you can present that job description. You know, maybe not having everything as a required qualification, but you can have a portion of that is maybe like, there's required, but then there's also preferred qualifications. So then it's still appearing on there, but it allows those who may not have all of those full qualifications to still apply and not, you know, deter them away. So I think there's also ways to present it without just removing it completely, because that also sends another impression.
I guess when we did that before, we had Howard Croft.
No, he was appointed by the emergency manager, so that wasn't, that don't count.
But still, though, he, you know, had a degree in master solar for GM and all that, and he probably could have qualified for the DPW position if those qualifications were taken out. So that's the only reason why I say that. But the other part is the TMF. Have you spoke to
Technical, managerial, financial.
Correct. Have you spoke to anyone, because they said it's supposed to have been out in the middle of this month, and that it was supposed to be an ACO.
The city's working on the ACO with the state of Michigan.
So, my 2 points. One, if I were looking for a job in Flint, especially a position with a high profile, no kidding, DPW, I would be scared to death of the politics in Flint. And if I took that job, I would make darn sure I had an exit plan. And as I've witnessed in other departments in Flint, where we've had qualified people in place, many of them last a year, less than a year, 18 months, and their golden parachute is enviable. So that's my 2 points.
Go ahead, Sean, and then
I think, Carol, or you guys all bring up good points. This is, at least for the DPW position, it's a national problem. We just basically don't have enough people with the licensors to be able to do this. And so it's a really competitive market. So I'd actually, and I'm sure there's a lot with the TMF too, but it's very hard to recruit these people anywhere. So I would actually, I'd like to try to figure out how we as a committee or something could try to help and do that, because this is an important challenge.
What power do you think we have?
I have no
obviously,
idea.
we can't kick in money to like beef
We
up
can
the salary
complain,
offer.
but
but,
I've
you
sat in
know.
meetings in North Carolina and they complain about the same things.
Yeah.
So like,
I mean, but y'all have a college network.
Yeah.
You know, you have people coming out of college, you know, you might have a professor.
if I knew someone with that license right now that was looking for a job, I would tell you in a heartbeat. The problem is there's so few of them. They can go anywhere they want.
And get paid whatever they want, essentially.
High pay.
For a city of this size, you know.
So again, that's what I said. That's what I said earlier.
But
we're
you
not
gotta
paying.
understand too, the water industry is kinda fallen to the wayside. There's not kids that are coming, graduating from high school, oh, I wanna get in the water industry. I never thought I was gonna work in the water industry. And just as, word of mouth, when the bottom fell out here in 2016, Eagle, EPA, everybody, you have office here now. Eagle had office. They were here. Jan Blomker was one of the head honchos from Eagle that was stationed here every day. Jan taught a class at Delta College for water chemistry. And he told me the last year he was there, 2017, 18, right there, there was only 5 students in the class. And Delta was ready to terminate the water class because they couldn't get enough students to even pay for his wage. So, you know, just people weren't, they're just not thinking of it. We need more either advertisement for that type of field or something to promote it.
Nancy was in the queue and then I saw Faith.
Yeah, this isn't a solution, I'll just point out, you know, Sean made the point, and I think Scott too, that this is a national problem. I will also tell you that there is a lot of focus on workforce development in the water field, and that's not gonna solve the problem here like tomorrow. But I wonder if there are ways to, you know, it's almost a benefit to become kind of a case example for some of those national efforts, because then the resources can come to Flint. So, you know, I can even attempt to connect, you know, with some of those people working on that to see if there's a willingness, but I don't, until I bring attention to the fact that, because what I hear, but this is an interesting conversation, because when I'm hearing people talk about the national level, they are completely ignorant of everything you all have just said about what the problems are at the local level. And so this needs to get to that level, because those resources need to be able to help address the problems that are happening at the local level. And I'm not solving anything here, I'm just expressing frustration.
Well, if I can help you, call on me.
So my last, I guess. I was
Sorry,
gonna
Faith was
comment.
It's
next in
okay,
the
you
queue.
can, you can go ahead and
Okay,
I'll
all right. And then I
give mine
Oh, I
last.
was just doing my comment. I thought public comment. And
Yeah, no, it's I thought Faith wanted to respond to what you said.
I'll wait till you.
You know what? This will be my last one.
It's okay.
Dr. Love and Dr. Mann, this is where I'm addressing you and Dr. Pollard and Ms. Russell. I've been talking about this family reunion. Right? Look at her smile. She already know what I'm getting ready to say.
No, I know.
In 2016, like Mr. Dungy said, everybody and their mother was here. I mean, all hands on deck. Eagle, EPA, CDC, everybody. Everything was being tested. Fire hydrants was being flushed. They had the automatic flushers on there. Chlorine residual was higher than what it is. I don't even know what it is now, because we used to have the little testers where the community could go out and test chlorine residuals ourselves. I don't even know what those are.
Well, Scott distributed some information about chlorine at a prior meeting, if I remember correctly. Didn't we get some data on that?
I think I got some data.
That should be on our record, but we can share that.
Okay. So, the problem that I have is that the last time our system was checked was by MDHHS. And that's when we were switching over to the KWA for the second year. That was a couple of years ago. our system is not safe. I don't think it's safe. I don't think it's fixed. I still feel like it's still messed up. We have not tested for Legionnaire. We have not tested for bacteria in our water. What is our water doing right now? Do anybody even know what's in our water right now? It's outside of what you all are required to test for. I want to know, the reason why I say it's not safe is that even though the filters are, statewide recommended now, but the people in other communities have the option of using filter or not. Does Flint have the option of using these filters on their faucets? Do we have to use filters on our faucet? Can't get a definite answer. I cannot get a definite answer.
You don't have to have them, but we are asking you to still use them due to the amount of lead service lines that are being changed out.
So we still have
And
to use
you still periodically could possibly kick something up, but due to their procedures, they're always flushing it out when they do that. So 99.9% of the time, there will be no cross connection or kickback of any of them particulates as they remove the lead lines. So, but with that being said, just because there is a slight possibility that something could happen while they're doing that, that could cause the water to go back a little bit, they are saying, you know what, use the filters just because we want you to be double safe.
Okay.
That's their
So
reasoning
all
with
right.
that.
That's a good one, right? So now, how many other systems get treated water from Gleewood that have to treat treated water?
I'd have to check with that. You know, each community is a little different. I don't know, that I don't know.
We never had to treat Detroit water when it came here to the city of Flint. Now we have to add different things. Are we still adding 3 milligrams per liter of orthophosphate to the water when it gets here from Detroit?
We make sure it's 3.5 when it leaves.
When it leaves, but are we still adding
Whatever it
3
takes to get it.
It's
to
1
3.5.
milligram.
Our target point for leaving our distribution water is 3.5.
All right, so we done been on that for what? This is 24, that's 8 years that we didn't have these high levels of orthophosphates. Do we know if there's any health risk for having these phosphates, this orthophosphate being so high for so long in our water? Do we know any health risks? Do we know anything about that?
I know none that are adverse.
Not for orthophosphate.
Nothing at all?
I don't.
Yeah, I mean,
So when do we go back down to like 1 milligram? When do we go down to the normal range of where everybody else is up?
yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think some of the main things are related more to secondary like the microbial growth levels, but then the disinfection not byproducts, but disinfectant levels from what we saw last October are higher in the city than they were when we were out monitoring.
What did you say?
That the residual chlorine, when we measured in a few locations in the city, last October was higher than a few years ago when we were here.
So that's good or bad?
It's good from the standpoint of preventing bacterial growth that might grow as a result of phosphate, yeah.
So are we putting more chlorine in the
I
water
don't
than
know,
normal?
maybe you can talk about whether it's more or what
Well,
your target is.
So it's a
even.
1.7 millimeter.
1.7.
It's 1.7.
What's it come from,
About a 1.
About 1. So we adding more chlorine.
Sounds like it.
Are we adding fluoride?
No.
All right, so the reason why I ask all this is because we still have to look at, if we're adding a whole lot, what is the health effects, for being on it so long, where, man, I'll just be quiet.
No, that's good stuff, Art, because, I think that, those are issues we all need to be thinking about, and insofar as we need to do some extra research, we can try to do that and circle back, because.
Oh, that's what I was gonna ask.
Yeah.
Was, it's a bunch of grants out here. You I remember when they tried to kick y'all out of a meeting. You know what I'm talking about too. You know what I'm talking about. When they got this.
Unfortunately, I've been kicked out of many meetings.
Yeah, when they really got
In fact, get out of here right now.
When they got the other group to come in lie for them about the legionnaires that y'all have found, you know. Is there any way that we can get some type of grant? And matter of fact, the water, they got almost everybody that was out there doing it on this committee that can go out there, third party, who we trust, that can go out there and test, not MDHHS, because here's the reason why I say not MDHHS. Detroit Water, I looked at their CCR, and it doesn't have barium coming in from Detroit. But in our CCR, we have barium in our water. Why do we have barium in our water if it's not coming from Detroit?
There's multiple water plants that feed the Gliwa system. That I'd have to research. I do know we had barium in our system when we made water because we used the ozone generator. Mm-hmm. And that was a process that we would monitor the part per million of that barium. So where I'm going with that is they have like four or five water plants that serve that whole Gliwa, so it probably depends on what water plant is serving that area. Mm. That might have, so for years, we bought Detroit's water that had alum coagulant in it. And when we changed the water source, we started making water because the Flint River had much more organics. It's a river versus a lake. There's all kinds of stuff, so we had to use a different chemical. So we used ferric chloride to coagulate all them organics. It's a totally different beast, a chemical. So when we changed that, it was like changing blood types in the system. You went from an alum-based water in our system, and within a month, now you got ferric-based water. It's still safe to drink, but it's different and it's different blood. And within a couple months, that stripped our linings and it reacted in the system and it caused our crisis.
So the only reason why I asked that is because Lockhart, get back to Lockhart. Lockhart, one of the main things that they were dumping was barium. And I was wanting to know, just like PFAS, forever chemical, it sticks. Does barium do the same thing? And is barium dangerous, or does it have some type of adverse effect on humans or whatever? Because
it's a regulated contaminant, right, under the Safe Drinking Water Act. So there would be a limit.
I mean, if you look at the test results from where they was dumping, barium is one of the #1 chemicals that they were dumping. And when I looked at the CCL,
2 parts per million is the MCL, maximum contamination.
Right, so
Your 2 orders of magnitude lower.
So when MDHHS was testing the KWA, barium was one of the things that was coming up in the water. So that's why I went and looked.
So and I'm in no way trying to close off this discussion. I am looking at the clock, and I'm thinking that maybe this conversation could actually fit into our discussion of the CCR, because that's one of the things that's in the Flint CCR, and one of the things we want to make sure to do with that document is to present that information in a way that it addresses exactly these kinds of questions, because I think a lot of people do look at that and think, why is there any barium in my water? What could that be doing to me? And those are exactly the kinds of questions that residents have, I think, again and again when they get these things. So part of what we need to figure out is how can we present the information in a way that is accessible and that addresses the questions that people actually have. So that's going to be a big part of our conversation. Sean, did you have
I just have
something
one
to add?
other brief thing, then we can go to the CCR. And I'm glad you raised this, because this is something that we've raised before, and so I'll ask Scott for help with this. It was when Mike was here. We had a couple of consecutive meetings where we were asking for the monthly operating reports and those kind of things. And these are the things that get to Art's question, right? So
Sure.
The chlorine being maintained, is the water quality in a good condition? All of, so if it would be very helpful if we could get to the committee so we could review before the next meeting, the last
Yeah.
three or something.
Yeah,
You know,
'cause
like.
this
make-
is just the annual
No
average,
problem.
this gives
Right.
us more.
Right, but if you can give us those kind of reports in advance of these meetings,
So we can respond.
and then we'll get on a regular schedule, and then we can come prepared to be able to talk to the whole community about what we see, what we don't see, that will help.
And I think, and this is more kind of a process, process thing, because we have members of the public here, I think that the members would want to also be part of that, information sharing thread, so, and I know we didn't do an actual, like, we actually didn't do roll call, but,
That's a good point.
but like, and we also did do sign-in, so like, if we could, at the end, like, have people's contact information collected, so you all can get, everybody can get the information that's gonna be shared ahead of the next meeting.
And whatever documents we get here,
Yeah.
you know, they go up
They
onto the
go
city
up,
website.
but I just think
Yeah.
that because we're here,
Sure.
we're having this discussion, it should go right to
Sure.
members of the public who are here.
Yeah, no, that would be great. I think, yeah, that would allow us to have maybe a more fine-grained conversation about, you know, how things are looking. So if there's nothing else with any of that, I did just want to provide an update on our council applications. So as most folks in the room know, we have a couple of people who applied some time ago now to join the council, and one reason why those applications weren't moving forward is that we decided that you know, we needed to have a conversation just about recruitment for the council and maybe coming up with some kind of strategy to make sure that this council, you know, really does represent the community, and that we have a, you know, diverse slice and diverse in, you know, many different ways, you know, slice of the community represented. And we had decided that Faith and I would have a follow-up conversation about that issue, and we did have that conversation. And you know, during that chat, you know, I think we both agreed that we should move forward with those two applications that we've already gotten. And of course, all we can do is say to the mayor, why don't you go ahead and nominate these folks, and then they've got to go through city council and all of that. But at the same time, you know, we really want to be intentional about thinking about, like, who is the council missing? Like, who else needs to be at this table? And making a concerted effort to get those folks there. So the one example of that we came up with was youth. You know, it would be great if we had, you know, some young members of the younger members of the community. I'm not trying to insult anyone. Younger members of the community. You know, who were, you know, participating in these meetings in one way or another, if not, you know, joining the council. And again, there might be other kinds of diversity that we might want to be thinking about here as well. So that's a bigger conversation that we can have. I mean, we can certainly chat about it now, but we could also make that an official part of a future agenda and have kind of do a deeper dive on that. What kinds of diversity, you know, should we be cultivating, you know, on the council? If anybody has any, you know, initial thoughts about that, great. But I just did want to confirm that those nomination or applications, I should say, are moving forward in the sense that, you know, they've been offered up to the mayor. Of course, he can decide, you know, what he wants to do with those. We don't have any control over that. But and then council will do what it does. But hopefully those gears are turning now.
When you mentioned youth, the first place I went was the water testing facility at that center there on MMT. I mean, they're youthful, they're energetic, they're absolutely willing to engage. I've been to a couple meetings down there. Yeah.
Could we, if they have facilities that we could host a meeting at?
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
That's an idea.
I mean, the council person, the director of the water lab is the council person for 7th Ward.
Yeah.
Candace Michelle.
Yeah.
And there's parking space.
Nothing wrong with the current
No, we like moving around too, just to.
Gotta mix it up a little.
Folks, you know, some folks feel comfortable coming here, others don't. Some folks will feel comfortable going there, others won't. It's, you know, you just wanna keep mixing it up.
They did the summit, they did the summit there, the water summit.
Right, that's true, yeah. Yeah, that's a great idea, Candace. So,
I
are there,
guess,
yeah, sorry, go ahead, Daniel.
I hate saying this, but I love young people. but knowing that this is kind of like a quasi-governmental body, like, can we have people under the age of 18? Because majority of the people from the water lab are under 18.
That's a good point.
Are they really that young?
Yeah. So I think that should be, and I'm like, for me, I'm like, as much people who can be involved, you know, but can they go through that formal process, because this is an appointment.
Well, it is,
you know.
it's a reach, and
Yeah.
there might be a way to groom future members.
Yeah, but I think
You know,
that, I
if
think
they-
we
if
could
they would
also
attend.
create like a space where you don't have to go through that bureaucracy for them to be involved.
Right.
You know, so it
Gotcha.
doesn't have to be like, you have to submit, it goes to the mayor, it goes to the council.
It can be just like the school board, you have a junior, what
Exactly.
they call it.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, like, just creating a way,
Liaison.
I would say creating a way that it doesn't have to go through this formal bureaucracy.
Mm.
Just because I don't want that to be
Right.
the barrier,
Right,
so that's,
right. No, those are great ideas. Well, okay, yes, please,
Thank you all so
thanks so
much.
much for being here, and we'll follow up.
We pray for dry weather for you.
Yeah. So, again, we can return to this conversation, I hope we will, and continue thinking about it, but these are some great initial suggestions. Everybody should have received a document that looks like this in the packet of things that was sent around. This was sent to me by Diane, so I'm gonna let Diane speak to this and just give us an update on where things stand with the facilitation assistance, if you're willing, Diane.
You bet. So, quick background, we were looking at resources to help, council. We've been looking at this, for 2 years? 2 years ago we had that conversation?
It's been a minute.
To just see if there's anything in our toolbox that we can leverage to the Water Advisory Council to help with organization, facilitation of the group itself. So initially what we looked at was a mechanism that by the time we were ready to hit go was no longer available. So we had shared a document, I don't know, probably a year ago now. We had comments back from the group. That has been shelved because that resource is no longer, because they're in a contract transition. So in the interim, this was kind of leveraged. Our environmental justice program at headquarters had just stood up some of these resources, and we said, us please. And we tried to do is we tried to take everything we had talked about before as far as what the council was looking to have support on, and basically build it into this mechanism. And this is what you see in front of you here. Now, this is intended to be short term, so you'll notice like there's some things about supporting like 4 meetings, or you know, it's truncated because the plan is, because these are always temporary resources. This is just kind of like to help kick off groups or you know, just get the gears going. What we'd like to do eventually is, I talked about that contract that got shelved. It's in transition. They're going to stand up a new one, and what I'd like to have happen is this would get us going, and then in the interim, I'm going to see if I can get as that new contract gets stood up, basically build in this into that contract.
So how long, you said it's a short term, how long?
So this is short term, so I think it's looking at now through July, because that new contract is not expected to be stood up until July. So we could get this going basically right now and have some meetings to figure out like how you want all these folks to fold in, and then just go. And then in the interim, I will continue to work on building that longer term contract.
All right, I'll do it.
Art and then Sean.
Oh, no, I just said.
I'm sorry for my ignorance here.
Yep.
What is 508 compliance?
So that is, so that it can be, so documents can be, I'm sorry, put into, so people are hard of, or cannot see or read. You can put them into the little mechanism so they can get read to them, so like the little program. So all of our documents are required to be 508 accessibility.
Okay, so it's
Accessibility, yes, that's the word I was looking for.
Having that kind of help, yeah, would be great. So just to remind folks, you know, what we're seeing here with the bullets, this is just a menu of possibilities. You know, we're not just like automatically turning any of these things over to these folks. It's just, if we decide that we need help with scheduling a meeting or something like that, we tell them, can you please help us out? And then they can, you know, do what they do. And so what I wanted to ask Diane is whether, you know, this, you know, one of the things we've talked about doing is some longer term stuff, like, you know, creating a website where we can get things, you know, posted that we want to get out to the community and that kind of stuff. I'm wondering if that is the kind of project that we would want to begin tackling with these folks, or would that be better saved for later?
You'd have to wait, because they are not, we talked about that, and they are not able to.
That's one thing.
Because they would
can't
stand
really
it up
do.
and then walk away from it, and
Yeah,
that's you don't
what-
want
you
that.
don't want that. Yeah. But at least in the short term, on the logistical side, we could have some help. And then, you know, so just looking ahead to our next agenda item here, you know, one of the things we've talked about doing with the CCR is not just having a robust conversation about that within the council, but getting the community involved in that conversation too. You know, it would be great to be, you know, come up with some kind of a survey where we're asking people, you know, what they think of the current CCR, what would they like to see in there, what do they understand, what don't they understand, you know, et cetera, et cetera. They could potentially help with something like that. So, you know, insofar as we need to do some facilitating that goes even beyond just these meetings, that's a role they could potentially play. And it might enable us to do some things that we wouldn't otherwise be able to do, like get the community more involved in that process. So again, just putting that out there, that even over these next, you know, several months, as we get that, you know, process going, they could potentially provide some support that would, you know, give us more capacity to do more things.
And it's really as you need. So I actually had experience recently working on this contract in East Palestine, Ohio. And I essentially was just the contract person to help facilitate the community, in that case, the village, with the contractor here, in this case, SKIO. And there was really, the communication and delineation of what they needed was between SKIO and the village in that case. And that would very much be what happens here. I'm just here to, like, all right, does there need to be some paperwork on my end to make sure that what's happening here is reflected in the technical directive, and that's what I would do. So it's really just a matter of connecting y'all and figuring out right now, like, the next step of this, and how to get you all connected.
So if I'm understanding, we had approved the other contract, what you're saying is that contract
That's been shelved.
Because of everything you just said. And
Yep.
so now, we can go through an interim phase until the end of July, when there's a new contract, and then we come back. Thank you.
So, I mean, I do think it's appropriate, since we have quorum. We didn't have quorum the last time we were talking about this, but we have quorum tonight.
Go for it, Ben.
So, you know, it would be appropriate to take an official vote on, you know, accepting and moving forward with this short-term contract. And, you know, again, if this isn't working out, this is something we can walk away from
Absolutely.
at any time.
Yep.
Doesn't have to be in 6 months or whatever. It can be at any time.
Yep.
If they're not giving us what we need from them, or, you know, whatever, for any reason, we can walk away. So I don't know if anybody has any other, I mean, we have talked quite a bit about the stuff at this point, but if there are any other, and I mean across multiple meetings, not tonight, but if there are any questions about any specifics here, please, yeah.
I don't have questions, I just fully support, and I would say, why not have them do every bullet on here? Like, I just feel like all of these things are assisting the group, they're not
Or have them
defining.
accessible to us.
Yeah, I mean, they're not, anyways, from my perspective, I think more help we can get. the better.
We're trying to alleviate burden for our city folks who are, helping us, and we really appreciate them, and they're doing a great job, but they've got a really big job with a lot of other responsibilities too. We're also, frankly, trying to alleviate burden on me.
Yeah.
Not to be too selfish about it, but there's a lot of logistical stuff that goes into these meetings. So anyway, is there any further discussion of this, or are we ready to take a vote?
Before
Yeah.
before the council officially votes, I wanted to offer a space if any community members have anything to say about it.
Absolutely. Questions, comments?
Yeah, you need a job.
You got the deal.
He wasn't
The
joking.
vote is not getting Art the job.
Now, Art, we've got 14 bullets. That we gotta make sure that you match up with our criteria.
Well, I skimmed it when I got my email, then I went back to it, and I thought this was very thorough. So, as a non-member, I encourage you to absolutely consider it.
Yeah, this is good.
All right.
That's good feedback.
I think.
Yes.
So should we do the Roberts Rules thing where we get a motion and a second, and we'll just
Sure.
make it nice and official? Any who wants to move?
I move to accept, this document.
You have a second for that?
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All in favor, please raise your hand. Okay, I think that goes down as unanimity,
No abstentions.
5-0.
By acclamation.
Okay. We
Yeah,
made an official decision. It's been a while, but anyway, it's like.
You made a decision the wrong time.
We haven't had quorum.
We
can't make a decision unless there's quorum.
Yeah, we've had some nice
So-
conversations.
We had lots of conversations, but not made a decision.
I'm just glad the EPA still shows up.
Yeah.
Anytime.
So thank-
I felt so bad the last time we were like here ready to present, we didn't have quorum, I was like, oh no.
Let me just say an official thank you to Diane for all of the work you've done on this, Diane, and it's exciting to be.
I'm here to
Forward.
help make success happen.
Yeah, I thought it was-
So now that we're ready to move forward, who's my point of contact so I can bring the two entities together? So is that, is there like a subcommittee or anything?
Under the Open Meetings Act, we can only have 2 members of the council at any meeting related to council business at any given time. So what I've been doing is when we have a meeting like that, I've been, telling people and inviting one other person to join, whoever basically responds to the email
Okay.
first
Yep,
and is
gotcha.
available. So, yeah, we would have
But
2.
it's always been.
It would be me and one other person probably
Okay.
doing that, yeah.
So I'll send an email tomorrow to folks, and so you'll be seeing an email from me hopefully before the end of this week.
That would be great. So speaking of meetings that we've had outside of these meetings related to council business, so at the last time we met, last couple times we've met, we have talked about taking Scott up on his offer to give some recommendations around the city's CCR, and so you've got a couple of documents related to that here. So one was put together by this group Cadmus that the city is already working with on compliance issues related to water. And this is a document that I think is coming out of multiple conversations. So not just the one that Nancy and I were able to have with them a few weeks back, but they're also having conversations with folks like Clyde and other folks on the city side about what those folks want to see happen with the CCR. And so I think this is really a compilation of points that have been made in multiple meetings. But it is very thorough. And so, I will say that, Nancy and I had met with the Cadmus folks just to talk about what our process of reviewing and recommending around the CCR might look like and how they could help us with that process. And they were pretty enthusiastic about it at the time. They said, sure, no problem. They had a graphic designer that was ready to go to help with that aspect of the CCR. But then, we were hoping also to have a robust conversation about the content in there. And so after that meeting, I had gotten wind that Clyde, the city administrator, was a little bit worried about us moving ahead with any kind of significant recommendations or revisions right now. And so I ended up sending him an email explaining what we were trying to do. And ultimately, we had a meeting with him, and Naira was able to participate in that. And so feel free to add or correct anything I'm saying here, Naira. But the point there was just to, again, kind of explain to Clyde what it is we're trying to do with this, but also kind of what our timeline is. And it turned out that the main concern I think he had was timeline, because things are going to have to happen pretty quickly over the next several weeks to get this year's CCR in order. And I think there was concern that if we start making a bunch of big recommendations, it's just going to throw everything into disarray, and we can't make big changes this time around. That's basically the message that I'm getting. But there are some changes that are already being made. So the other thing that you've got is a redesign of the front page of the CCR to make it at least look a little bit more appealing. Of course, that's just the surface stuff. Ultimately we got to get to the substance too and make sure we're talking about that. But this, at the very least, will be changed in this year's CCR. If we have other recommendations for this year, again, what I'm hearing is that they're not going to want to do anything major. Maybe if we had some minor things that we recommended sooner than later, they could take those into consideration. But really what we're probably looking at here is a process. So there are going to be some new rules around the CCR that go into effect at the beginning of next year, from what we understand, coming from EPA.
Yeah.
And that really will be another excuse to take a deeper look at what's in this document and how we can modify it to make it more accessible, to make it more informative. And again, part of the idea here is to make space for not just us, but the broader community in that process. So, I mean, I don't think we know much at all about when people get this in the mail, what are they doing with it? Is it going straight into the trash? Is it, if they open that and look through it, what are they understanding? What are they not understanding? What are they seeing in there that they do want to see? What are they not seeing in there that they wish was in there? That's stuff that we can try to suss out as a council, especially if we have some help putting together maybe meetings, focus groups, surveys, that kind of thing. But that's a longer process. That's not going to happen before this year's CCR goes up.
And I would say, like, my understanding from that conversation, one of the things I took away was it was more like logistics of like they're doing the they're developing the contract. They're trying to get the vendor to do the printing, and so that was, I felt like, and it was like that contract was happening, that RFP was happening like as we were at that meeting, I guess. So I think that was like the major sticking point, which that could be a fair assessment, could be, but they had already said that this is what they wanted to change it to this as the front page, that was decision that the mayor had already made.
I saw Gina's hand go up, and then
Yeah, we just, that you made me think of another point. 'Cause it seems like so much of what was said last year, we don't have time to incorporate the change that was in front of us. But what I was thinking is that it would be nice to see maybe like a phased approach. If all of these can't be incorporated, then okay, well, what can be? Maybe let's see what are out of all of these.
What's the low-hanging fruit?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, I don't know if we're gonna go through that. I have, just looking at it, I have some suggestions that I don't see captured in here.
Absolutely.
Which I think we had briefly discussed last year. But like, for instance, you know, if this is a report, you know, and it's for the, you know, general public, you know, the interpretation or conclusion, result or not, you know, it's not really there. It has the data, but not everybody can interpret the data just in the data table.
Yeah.
You know, so I think I had
Absolutely.
suggested last year having some type of summary at the end. What
Yeah.
does this mean?
Yeah.
You know, just a couple sentences, that the general public can understand. Okay, so how are we doing overall? And that is missing in any type of report. You usually find some type of conclusion or overall results. And then, just, you know, simple things like, there's a lot of acronyms here, MC, LG, MCL, even GCD, not everybody knows what that means, so you should definitely, like, these acronyms can be broken down, I would think that has, you know, that is a minimum, something that can be at least, you know, added, in there. But those are just a few things that I noticed.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wow. So, you just took everything I was going to say. It goes back to what we've been discussing.
What?
If you send this to me, and I don't know what MCL stands for, what the heck is HAA5? Okay, it's 0.8 PPB. Man, if you don't put that in the garbage, man, I don't know nothing about that. So it goes back to what you and I was talking about, Ms. Russell. A technical assistant to come out and have a meeting when this comes out, or either the Water Advisory Committee, which y'all can have a meeting and go live on the city website and go over the report with the city. Hey, y'all, look.
It can be recorded, so then people can visit it.
CCR just came out, and this is the findings, this is what we have, this is what this means, let's go through it step by step. All right, this. I mean, it won't be hard because we've been talking about water for over 10 years now. But it would help the people, and it would build up confidence in the community, knowing that, you know, you all are going over the CCR with them. Now, my other question, I think back in the day when we used to get it, they would show us Detroit's water. Why will they put that in here along with, I mean, which water are they testing? Are they testing
We
the
test
water?
all three. So everything that's gonna be in here, you're gonna get Legal's water source, GCDC's water source, and our blended quality. That's both of them combined with everything that we add.
Wait, I mean, is it gonna say, you know, when it's leaving Detroit, is it gonna say, this is, when it leaves Gleewood, this is what it tests at Gleewood, and then once it got to Flint, it doesn't show Flint, then it shows the, GCDC. I mean, does it show?
Gleewood's numbers that we put on here come from Gleewood. So in March, the first week in March, Gleewood will send us the info that we need to put in Gleewood's boxes. And then GCDC will send us all of their stuff. Because we rely on their labs and because some of these are like running averages and the whole year's worth, they average together and whatnot. So they have to, you know, we don't have access to their stuff. So they'll send us what is required. Then I just input that on. And then the city of Flint section, we do.
So you have all of them? Okay, that's what I
So
was.
the only thing, Art, is that not all the measurements that are made at treatment plants are the same measurements that are made in distribution systems and vice versa. So it's not because some of those things aren't being measured in appropriate places, it's just, you're not gonna find sodium in the distribution system.
You're not gonna find it measured.
Measured,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I saw Naira and then Carol.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, then Nancy.
This is more of a gripe for me, a vent, if you will. So I know like back in like 2021, like Eagle was supposed to go through this whole kind of like putting stuff in plain language. That never happened. Like every time I'm in a meeting, like what happened to the plain language, you know? But just thinking about like as much as possible, I know it was like modifying mandatory and prescribed language by saying like making it plain language, which is kind of, it's slightly different, like as plain as possible. So you know, really kind of like looking at the readability. And I think as part of that community engagement process, if we're doing it for the next year, like specifically recruiting young people to do that, or just people who, you know, like me, I always go to my sister because she's not in this. And if she can understand it, then I'm like, okay.
Well, and,
okay,
and Faith
good to
did
go
do an
out.
analysis, at least using Word, right, to see what the reading level was, and the result was
have
what
to
you
look up.
remember?
It was pretty high.
The
It was like 11 to
11th or
12, I
grade or
think,
something like
yeah.
that reading level, which is
And
higher
sixth,
than
I
what's
think,
recommended.
is recommended, yeah, 6 to 8, maybe.
What do you find, can I go back and look up like 2020, 2019, report, where do I find that?
That's those are on the city website, I think.
Is it?
Yeah. Yeah. Go ahead, Kim.
So, I'm thinking time, simple fixes, and there probably is no time. But the accessibility as far as translating it into languages, maybe it
Yeah.
can't be done this round, but I do think it's a priority. And as far as where you're gonna place it, there might be a cosmetic way to fix it in future. But, you know, I get crap from my doctor and the pharmacy, 6 pages of stuff on that's not English. And I have no complaint because I know people are being informed. So there.
That's a great point. And so when I was on the CCR working group under EPA, there was a lot of talk about translation, and they were talking about putting in place a certain threshold. If you have this percentage of speakers of a foreign language in your community, then you would be required to translate. I don't think we're gonna get under or over any threshold that's mandated, but that doesn't mean that we can't go above and beyond and be thinking about those members of the community that aren't being reached by
We
an
have
English
large
language
bodies in
CCR.
Spanish, we have large bodies in
Yeah.
Arabic. I don't know what the primary,
Right.
global languages are.
Right.
And I remember the beginning of the water crisis. We had so many people here, they had no idea what was going on long after they admitted the crisis. And, I was just horrified to know that those families were helpless to change the past. So that's my angle.
Wait, Gina, did you have a hand?
Yeah, I was just gonna go back to the issue of the RFP. I'm not for sure necessarily why that would be an issue. I don't know, maybe it's a budgetary issue. I mean, you could write into your RFP, let's say, a price for, they would like to have a price for 1 to 3 pages, 4 to 6 pages, 7 to 8 pages. So, you don't have to be stuck with, so then when they submit their proposals, that those different price points are already in there. Of course, if you only say 2 pages, then you're stuck with that. But just thinking ahead,
Right.
Knowing that there might be some changes, you can ask for those different ranges.
In a point of contact for other languages, it's like, for more information, please contact for, a deeper dive.
Right.
And when does this supposed to be going out? For
It has to be to the residents by July 1st.
Right, July 1st, but when they mail
But
them
it'll
out-
be locked in well before that.
Yeah,
When
they
is the
want a
RFP?
contract.
You said an RFP going out.
Well, I think it was mentioned
So the
that
RFP has to go
when
because
this was being
the 3-year
discussed.
contract was
No,
off
I'm saying,
last
when
year.
is it, when is it out already?
something to me?
It needs to go ASAP, because that
Right.
means we gotta, ask for
30
vendors
days,
to give
yeah.
us,
Yeah.
give us a quote, what you charge us to do this task.
So are we gonna have time to even get to see?
Well, that's what we're saying, it's limited now.
Yeah.
I'll be getting the data March 1st.
So you get the data March 1st, the RFP goes out for printing.
The RFP can go out right now, if we don't make no changes, we know exactly what it is.
Yeah.
But if you're gonna make changes, it
Right.
needs to be done, and you need to know
Right.
ASAP, so we
Right.
can put that
Right.
in RFP.
But the main
50 pages,
thing-
30 pages, what?
But the main thing for the RFP, Scott, am I right, is knowing how many pages it would be. So if we were,
Pages, color, all of that.
okay, but if we were, so if we, for example, just were to say, okay, for now, this design is fine, we don't wanna need to make any color changes.
They're already doing that. Like, my impression was this is going to be the design.
This is the change they're making this year, right?
Yeah.
But putting that aside from our perspective for now, if we were just to say, this is our page, these are the amount of page numbers we wanna have to work with. So that goes into the RFP, but as far as what's printed in those pages, words could be tweaked and stuff, I would imagine, after the RFP
As long
goes
as we
out.
include
Until
everything
when?
that's
Required.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
But like, so a summary
Right,
or
right.
something that is a little more accessible could still possibly get in.
Right, like you say, we try to stick to, I don't
Right.
know, like 4 pages or something, you
Right.
know,
Because
and
ultimately,
then
no matter
just
what
try
you
to
come up
reduce.
with,
Right.
it will have to be sent to Eagle, and they will have to approve it, and they
Yeah.
take
Yeah.
a couple weeks, 3
Yeah.
weeks, you know what I mean?
Well,
So, I mean, I can see time
Yeah.
gone.
And
Yeah.
that's what I'm
But that's
asking.
gonna happen
So-
every
So
year.
the RFP
Yeah.
needs to go
Yeah.
out like tomorrow, basically, so that you can have the people ready, so that he can have, he said his stuff comes out March the 1st. That's a couple of weeks from now, and.
So
July
here's
1st
my
is right
question.
around the corner.
Not to cut you off, Art, but could we, so you guys know what amount of space you need for the required stuff, yes?
How many pages is that?
Maybe
8?
7, 8 pages is what we have now.
If we were to tell them now, for RFP purposes, you know, we wanna be prepared to have say a 10-page CCR. We could write that into the RFP, and we wouldn't have to have every line worked out right now, but we'd have that wiggle room if we needed it. Is that accurate?
If they told you that's all they're gonna do for right now, I'm not gonna say that you can go forward and tweak. Because they've already,
Okay.
you know, they're having another meeting Friday, I wanna say, or in a couple days,
Okay.
to discuss this. Clyde and
Oh.
Cadmus.
Okay.
They
And
brought up
EPA.
technology for
Or Clyde and
translation.
EPA or something,
Right.
they're having a meeting to discuss this.
So, but looking ahead, so if this RFP is gonna be for the next 3 years,
No,
or
no,
this,
we're just doing it for 1 year.
for 1 year, okay.
Because we realize something's probably gonna come down.
Yeah, yeah, okay.
So we're figuring, you know what, we'll do the color this year, but
Yeah.
through this next year, you can
Yeah.
take your time, you can go through this and do it correctly.
Yeah,
And you can
yeah.
make multiple versions, we'll get it approved, get it right,
Right.
get it to Eagle, get them to approve it, and then, you
Right.
know what I mean, so.
Right.
Yeah.
This is a more involved project
Yeah,
than just
yeah.
a slam bam, thank you, Sam.
Yeah,
So should
yeah,
one of y'all
yeah.
be in, the meeting next time? I mean, you know, if y'all gonna come up with something, shouldn't you all be with Clyde and the other person offering your suggestions? Also, especially being the advisory, water advisory council?
Well,
We can only advise.
I mean, that would be, yes, that should, I mean, it should, be an
Optimal.
advisor, right?
Optimal.
Yeah.
I'm just.
Yeah, I know.
mean, I just asking.
I just got the joke.
Because
But we would
so
always-
we're obviously, Scott, we're not in a
I'm just throwing in
position.
there, you know, all the
Yeah.
facts.
Yeah, we're not in a
You just got
position
quorum,
tonight.
You had 4 meetings, you know,
Yeah,
it
yeah.
took you 4 meetings to get a quorum
I
to
know.
approve this.
It will take.
So
it
when you
takes-
start doing this,
Yeah. It's gonna
I'm
take.
telling you,
We're
you're
gonna
gonna need the whole
get,
year.
we're gonna
Yeah.
get a work through.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
But also just knowing that like whatever like, you know, the EPA rules are going to be, was it March 15th
For the,
for the adjusted CCR?
of next year, you mean?
I think it's like, I think like they come out, like the final rule comes out March 15th and then states have to implement it for the next
They go into effect in
cycle.
2024.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Mhm.
2025, 2025.
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah, I meant to say
Yeah.
2025, yeah.
But if the data doesn't come out until, you said March, the data, so does that mean we have to wait to start drafting all of these changes? Cause each year it's gonna be the same issue, but we have, it's March. So like what, you know, what is the process for making these changes? Can we start that for the following year before March?
Oh,
I'm
we-
hoping,
or,
yes. Yeah,
you know?
We
In
can
my-
at
in
least
my
start
head, yes,
talking
it's
about
coming
it. Yeah,
down.
yeah, absolutely.
Get the format.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Go ahead, Nancy.
Yeah, along the lines of this, so it seems to me that if currently, I think you all said that when the CCR comes in, your first thing is your file 13ing it, right? So we already are dealing with, a public that is not expecting, information that they can, are interested in or whatever with this document.
But that they can
So it's
ask
almost
them.
like this is the
Yeah.
year to change that. And before you even said what you said, I wrote down information sessions, because we had talked about this a while ago. Where, and even with this one coming out, I would really love it if we did something of the form, that I think had been previously discussed, where we, first of all, what are the questions the community has? Whether it's what they read in the CCR or otherwise, use that to help guide information sessions and go do them, and we can do this as a council, but then using that, I won't be an official meeting, we have to figure out how to do that, but, but then using that to start developing what it is we're going to, we understand needs to really kind of get into this and what is the information that the community is interested in receiving. I think we need to go through this process. I'm very interested, I volunteer to be available for it. Because nothing is more important than getting the information into a form that the community can absorb, and then ask even more questions about over time, so it'll continue to feed into itself. And then the other thing, so I very much support that idea, and I think this is the year where we're gonna need to prepare so that for next year, you know, we can actually do a good job putting something in that we know was community informed. The other thing I'll just mention, and I don't know if this is gonna be helpful or not, or an output into this process, but I had shared with them, you know, Ann Arbor, with its budgets, I guess, but does a newsletter on top of the CCR. So and the newsletter is not controlled by Eagle. They have, you know, they pick, I guess, their content. And so I don't know that that's as helpful as the information sessions right now, but it's just something to keep in mind, that it's an off-cycle piece of information that goes out. Yeah.
And one of the reasons that's beneficial is when you come to the community and you explain that you need to up rates or do something, you have a document that you've been just engaging with them and describing all the things you've been doing along the way, so they're not just sit out like, now they want more money, they're not doing anything. So it gives you an opportunity as a utility to be able to.
Well, and we've talked about ways that, you know, the utility could be telling its story a little bit more proactively. The story of the people who work here and the work that they're doing and why it's important and what the status is of various projects. And, you know, so it doesn't, I mean, I think it would be great if the CCR itself did a little bit of that, just so that people have more of an overview of like what's going on. But it doesn't just have to be limited to the CCR, you know, certainly and I know, you know, everything extra means extra time and extra people and extra resources, and we get that, and you know, we need to, you know, continue being sensitive to that. But you know, if there are ways that we can help to make up some of the difference, especially if we're getting facilitation help, if we have help building a website or something like that, we can do some of that. You know, we can help tell some of that story to the best of our ability.
Well, and if this is coming out in June, it's going to show up in their mailboxes in June. You know, it seems that we're talking July or August to actually have something pretty soon after it comes out, to have one of these information sessions. Let's get it done this summer.
That seems like a good target, and you know what I've realized is that it's causing some anxiety and consternation on the city side right now for us to even suggest that we might want to change this year's CCR. You know, and you know we get that, but you know, really I think what as we talk this through more, and I don't want to speak for anybody, but it seems to me that kind of what we're realizing is that we've got the CCR we've got for this year, but in some ways it's going to be a great chance if we can arrange an event like the one we're talking about to see how it's coming across to people and to actually gather some information on that. Maybe we'll hear from some folks in the community that actually, I love the CCR, just wait, don't change it. It's possible. Probably we won't hear that, but you know, we'll give people the opportunity to you know, react to it, and then we can take that information and we can, you know, use that to inform our own conversations and ultimately our own, you know, recommendations. But does that sound like a timeline? It's not that we can't keep talking about this in the meantime, but you know, maybe so at our next meeting, one of the things we could talk about is what would a community event or events, you know, like that look like, and you know, start strategizing a little bit around that.
And especially if we have the facilitation. I think one of the things we've always had the challenge of is we have to do it at a meeting, so we didn't get everybody's involvement. Having two of us do it is always a challenge, but then if we have the facilitation, can we have a subcommittee of two?
We certainly can, yeah, and we can have more than one. At one time, we did try to create some subcommittees, and it's just that we keep coming back to that capacity issue. Yeah. It's just, you know, not a ton of capacity.
And also, like, I don't know who out in the community is super animated about this, but perhaps we could have two council members and then open it up to
other
the
folks,
community.
absolutely. Anybody
I
can
don't
be on the
know, I don't,
subcommittee. Yeah, yeah.
I think that's really critical, yeah.
I wanna be respectful of people's time. It is 7:22, and, you know, again, I feel like we had a great conversation here, and maybe a better sense of what we wanna do moving forward. Nancy, you wanna-
I guess I just want to, is there something we can do to ensure that we keep the notion of an event on a high priority, almost even, I don't know if we're voting on anything, but we have 5 people here, so,
If-
you know.
Along the lines of, why don't we establish an event planning subcommittee
Something
right
like that.
now, like
Yeah,
assign 2 people
exactly.
officially to that
Yeah.
task,
Or-
and then maybe they can have a meeting in between meetings and try to
Yeah.
move some of that forward a little bit.
We also talked about it could be more people, but we have to be creative in how we meet.
Would anybody want to volunteer to be on such a committee? Starting with council members, I suppose, but, although, you know, yeah, I don't know why we would need 2 people necessarily on a subcommittee. It could be 1 council member, and again, whoever else wants to be involved.
Yeah. What I don't wanna do is take a spot away from a resident, so, but I'm here as a technical person to help, but the problem is I'm also a committee member, so I don't know how that works.
Well, I'm from the community and I'm not technical, so I'm available. Should I be called up?
Okay. So, I mean, Nancy and Carol, you guys could put your heads together, you know, sometime.
But with the facilitation folks?
So let me be clear about your timeline on your event. So you're talking about having like a summertime,
Let's talk about the CCR, the follow-on after it's come out, right? So that's, yes.
so that's,
So
I
that
know
would be
your contract's
after
gonna
the
be
expiration of the
shifting,
short-term
yeah.
contract.
we
That's what
we might be butting up against a foldover, but let's, cause SKIO is they do a lot of those. Like, they do a lot of like charrettes, and, I mean, they do so many of those things, so they can do this in their sleep, right? And organize that, so maybe there's a way to, like, modify things up front here, if that's really where you wanna focus to go, cause a lot of the line items in here are more around meeting notes,
Just-
helping you guys get space. It's nothing in here about developing a community-wide input sesh.
Is the contract part of your contract, or is that
Okay.
different?
These are 2 different things.
So
do
the
it
CAD
this
is
way.
different.
Do it this way.
Yeah.
Have a meeting, and you use that person to facilitate your meeting, but your meeting will be to discuss the CCR.
That's fine, except
Yeah.
what Diana's saying is that the short-term contract would be up by the time the CCR comes out.
No, she
Or-
wasn't saying
no?
that.
You don't have to wait for it to come out to have.
No,
a
she was
meeting.
saying that the facilitator's there just for your meetings, not.
Right, that's how this is written right now, yes, but y'all are talking about having something else where they're helping build an event where you're gathering community input on CCR and
And
kind of.
that's just not in the.
It's not in
contract.
here. I'm
Okay,
not saying that
okay.
it can't be.
Sorry.
Number one, number two, I am a little worried about timing, cause
Yeah.
even if we did put it in here, are we running up against like when we were trying to plan to phase this out and bring on the new one?
Yeah, the time.
Because then the new one, there's not anything ruling out that we wouldn't do that there, but again, we wouldn't know who that facilitator is, what that group is, so I couldn't speak to what their capabilities are. I know what SKIO's capable of, and I know that they have successfully built and planned out charrettes and other
Could we
things.
do it even in anticipation of the
Yeah,
CCR
that's what I was
coming
gonna
out?
say,
It
could we
doesn't-
do it the
yeah.
last 2 weeks of June or something, because
Maybe.
all of the stuff will be at the printer by
Hey,
then.
as a matter of fact, Mr. Duncan, how soon do y'all mail them out? We have to have them before.
Yep, we mail them out
July.
at the beginning of the 3rd week.
Okay, but
Yes.
how quick do y'all get them before y'all mail them out?
We don't get them, the print lab just sends them out, we don't even see them.
They don't send you
They'll
on
send us a
approved?
couple boxes probably.
Right, approved, right?
Yeah.
For y'all to look at.
Well, we've already approved it, cause we have it in a
That's
Word
good
format,
file.
so all we do is input the data.
So,
But we would have it ahead of
So
time.
you all
Yeah,
have
we
data
yeah.
before the CCR even comes up.
Right,
So
that's right.
you can all base and build a meeting up prior to.
Yeah.
You know, all the residents getting in July the 1st. So this person can already build and establish and, you know, do everything they need to do prior to the end of the contract.
I think that's reasonable, and I think even if we do an event, say in June or whatever, so it doesn't get caught up in the problems that Diana has brought up with regard to the timing of the EP contract, and then maybe one other this year somehow, we'll learn from this process and we'll get better next time.
Would that be doable, Diane, to modify the contract to reflect that?
I don't see why it wouldn't, but I think we also need to have this conversation, we need to talk to, Skio and see like, hey, you know, cause all these things, if you look at the bullets, it would be scheduling meetings, it would be arranging agendas, it just is looking a little different based on what you're talking about. It's less about this council and it's more about this off-site event coordinating.
Well, but yeah, I mean, we could roll it into a council meeting.
That's what
I mean, that's.
And it doesn't have to be, I mean, if SKIO has experience, that's great, but I'm not sure we're saying SKIO is gonna do it like they normally do. Maybe SKIO is providing some advice and let the community do it, let the council do it.
There's nothing stopping y'all from having that conversation. Let's talk, let's figure out some, cause they might have some really great ideas on how this can be executed for y'all.
So then probably what we would be looking at then is, I mean, it'd be nice to meet once more, I think, as a council before that public meeting. So, you know, that, I don't know, how far out do we wanna look for that? Middle of, I mean, is May too late? Do we wanna meet sooner?
Well, I think we need to meet sooner if we're like a subcommittee.
Yeah, I mean, a smaller
well,
group.
you're not even on there, so there can be yet another person.
I only have 2 days a month I'm not available.
If he has some data by May, middle of May, and you all meet in May.
We could meet in
That
May.
gives y'all all of June.
Well, it's before May,
You'll have
right?
to work it out.
End of March it'll be done.
It wouldn't be a rush.
Okay.
Y'all had data and everything, and
Yeah.
they'll be met, and then you can talk to the facilitator, and that'd be a whole month, 2 months almost.
Yeah.
For y'all to work it out, and y'all wouldn't have to rush and, try to get everything done.
So how about I send out some possibilities for like end of April, early May?
For a council meeting.
For us to meet, we can look at, you know, the final product, and we can talk more about how we wanna approach the other public meeting. And, you know, if there are conversations that are going on in the meantime where the idea is being refined, then that's.
Before that meeting,
Before
yeah,
then
right.
that's totally cool. And then, we can put ourselves in a strong position, I think, to have a late June. I'm saying mid in part because I think I might be gone in late June. I'd love to be here for this, but yeah, anyway, we can talk more about the timing of that, but at the very least, you know, late June is a rough
Cause
target.
I'm thinking if I think Scott or someone from your staff would be important to a discussion, just cause you know.
Well, I'm open to any information.
And then there's
I
room
am
for
very
another
new.
council member, cause I'm only one.
That's true, and, you know, I'm happy to jump in on a meeting and participate, but, you know, also we should maybe open it up to the larger group, to the folks that weren't able to come
Just
tonight,
FYI.
and, you know, see if there's interest out there. All right, this has been great. I wanna get people home
Can I
because,
ask you one
yeah.
for your next meeting also?
Sorry, say again?
For your next meeting also,
Yeah.
can I ask, back when EPA first came, they said that we had to downsize the distribution system. Whatever happened to that conversation? Is it still going on?
You're opening a real can of worms here at 7:32. aren't you?
No, not the answer right now.
Yeah, okay.
For the next.
No,
next
that's,
meeting.
let's talk about that.
Whatever happened to that conversation, and is it still a priority to where, you know, you only have 80,000 people and, you know, it was built for 200,000? What are they doing? Are they working on that now, or what's going on? Are they doing something behind our backs? What, I mean, you know, I just need to know.
Well, first of all,
Downsizing
you know
system,
they're working behind
to
the
be
desk and
continued.
don't
See, he ain't said nothing.
We'll wait till next meeting for that one. Gotta prep for that one.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Thanks,
But I will
everybody.
ask Jiggy and Treese to be here, I know that lady's gone, but I will ask Jiggy to be here from the sewer on our next meeting.
That would be
So,
wonderful.
you know, hopefully I will be in contact with her one way or another, and Jiggy, to try to get this resolved, or, you know, at least looking into trying to figure out what's going
So
on
that's
prior to that, but I will make sure he's here next week.
Thanks so much, Scott.
Yeah.
All right, thank you, everybody. Please get home safely, and look for an email from me about scheduling the next meeting, unless there's anything else.
Yeah, I have, weren't you gonna have like a sign-in?
Oh, if folks, yeah.
Even it's at the end?
Do we have, you've got
Since we
something?
didn't do
Oh,
roll
thank you.
call.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Everybody got mine.
Yeah.
Got it already.
No,
No,
you
I don't
gotta sign it,
assume
you gotta
that,
be
because I signed it.
official.
Yep.
Or-
I don't have it.
Can I have a
Oh,
pen?
my fault. I thought I emailed everybody already.
No.
Messing with everybody?